Welcome back, everyone, to Claims Corner and our featured topic, Agile Leadership. We're talking about what it takes to go from doing Agile to being Agile. My name is Alan Demers, and I'm joined today by John Crow. John is Vice President of Insurance Claims at Cincinnati Insurance. John, thanks for joining us today.
Oh, Alan, thanks for having me. I appreciate the invitation and the opportunity to chat. Just for everybody out there that doesn't know who I am, I've been with Cincinnati Insurance Company for 35 years in the claims department. I started out as an adjuster in the Virginia area, Northern Virginia, and now I am over our claims operations group, which is basically a support for our claims department as well as other groups within the company.
Well, John, thanks for joining. I think this is such an important topic, especially as leaders are faced with all sorts of disruption, especially in the claims area. Lots already going on with innovation. It's a heavy cat season again. People are working from home with all their distractions. So really a lot on the table and a real big demand for agile leadership. So first thing I wanted to talk to you about is, as I was preparing, I took a look ahead and noticed that there's all sorts of different definitions of agile leadership. So I'd like to start by asking you, what's your definition or description of agile leadership?
Okay, let me give it a shot. First, I believe that a number of agile principles and concepts have been practiced by successful companies long before agile came into popularity. I mean, when you look at the four major principles for agile project management, they're individuals and interactions over processes and tools, working software over comprehensive documentation, customer collaboration over contract negotiation, and responding to change over following a plan. I think, as I said, lots of companies have been doing those kinds of things for a long time. What I like to stress when talking about agile is that it's a mindset. For me, it means acknowledging the complexity of the business environment, the pace at which the change impacts that environment, and the complexity of responding to those changes. I mean, I think you have to accept the fact that you face uncertainty and you cannot know everything when you start to solution something. One of the things that you want to do when you have that agile mindset is approach things in a way that allows you to continuously learn and adapt to the challenge. It's very easy. You can minimize uncertainty in your solution by focusing on the customer, focusing on the desired outcome and the service and solution they need and want. One of the things we try to do is ask ourselves and teams a few questions just to get in the right mindset. And it's, do you understand the outcome, or do we understand the outcome we're trying to deliver? What can we do better to understand the outcome or the needs? How can we apply what we learned to better satisfy the customer's needs and also to improve the organization's results? And finally, are there things we are not doing that we should be doing? These questions help you to deliver a value to the customer. They allow you to pivot when the needs change. You can also test your potential solution by releasing and putting small bits of that solution into your customer's hands much quicker. And finally, which is something that's really important, I think, with Agile, is continuous improvement. So I think those are kind of where, how I would answer that question.
Yeah, no, that's a really thoughtful description. And it sounds like you've been at it for a while, John. So when did your organization first start using agile leadership?
Personally, I believe our claims department and our IT claims group have had an agile mindset since we implemented our claims system way back in 2003. We just didn't know that that's what we were doing. And granted, we weren't using the frameworks that currently support agile, and we didn't have the formalized manifesto that's ascribed to today. But in theory, that is what we were trying to do. I believe the philosophy was there from the beginning. I think this is true for most companies that have been successful in putting out new products, new software, just in change as well. Successful companies are always looking for ways to be more efficient, provide better services and products, and to maximize their resources to better serve customers. Corporately, we started the official Agile journey about 2.5 years ago. Claims didn't really start the journey until March of 2020. So your comment about it sounds like I have a lot of background in it. It's very minuscule compared to a lot of people.
Right.
But what I've noticed about this whole thing is really a cultural shift for most companies, and requires us to educate, to communicate more clearly, and then to weave all of these agile principles into our existing culture.
Yeah, no, that all makes sense. And so, I recognize you're still trying to perfect agile leadership, as we all are. But you've had some time at it. So, what are some of the more common mistakes and challenges in getting to an agile organization?
I don't know that they're a lot different than whenever you're trying to make a big change or philosophical change within the organization. But for us, I think the first thing is managing expectations. Agile doesn't automatically equal success, and it's certainly not a silver bullet. I don't believe it's a cure, because if you're using Agile, you're going to be successful. Executives, project managers, developers, testers, and the business owners have to understand that regardless of whether you're using Agile, Waterfall, or another methodology, you still have to execute and deliver products and services on time. And you have to make sure they're on budget, and that it is something that the consumers want and need. I guess to sum it up, just saying you're doing something doesn't mean you're actually doing it or that you're going to be successful. And you have to keep that in mind as you move forward. Organizations as a whole tend to just hang their hats on checking boxes a lot and not fully committing to the process and cultural changes that need to occur when you undertake this type of transformation. This not only applies to Agile, but to any big changes in the process that companies undertake. A second thing I think that you have to do is you have to make sure you get the right people involved in the transformation and the implementation. And that's really going to be your difference between success and failure. First thing people always think about, and you've probably heard this before, first thing people always think about or say when you mention Agile, you're doing Agile, is, oh, you're faster, it's cheaper. It can happen, but Agile by itself doesn't always equal this. I think what you have to do as you continue to move down towards being an Agile organization, or even if you are an Agile organization, you can never really stop thinking. You have to keep figuring out, how can we better? How can we do this better? Using Agile, if implemented correctly, certainly is going to allow you to see your failures much more quickly. And as a result of that, it's going to help reduce the costs of those failures. And again, in theory, it can be faster and it can reduce costs. But overall, for me, I think what the positive is, it allows you to deliver products and services that your customers want right now, not what they wanted 2 years ago. Agile encourages us to move from project to product mindset. And with that, you shift your focus from the stakeholder to that of the customer.
Yeah, that all makes sense. I mean, I think I'm hearing a lot about, execution is definitely more important than the strategy itself, and what you get from it, more so than how you do it. So maybe shift gears a little bit, because everyone's dealing with this. How has working from home worked out for you and your team? And then, how is that agile leadership helping or supporting what you're trying to get done?
I think something for us that was good is early on during the pandemic, our CEO and board of directors made the decision that all but a skeletal staff would work from home through the end of the year. Normally, we have about 3,700 people in our home office, but today we have between 250 and 300. By making this early decision, our associates were able to plan for their children's upcoming school year or to make necessary arrangements as caregivers for loved ones. Our company already had a great deal of the culture and infrastructure in place prior to COVID-19 for our staff to be able to work from home full time. Since I started way back in 1985, we've always had about 30 to 35% of our staff working from home. In addition, a large portion of our companies regularly work from home at least one day a week for several years now. And another great thing about what's been happening in all industries is that our DR plans have had us buy laptops for almost all of our associates. So that really was not a problem about having to leave the office on a Friday and then start working from home on a Monday. Another thing that we did, we recently switched to a new collaboration tool that's helped us work more collaboratively and to also improve our remote communications. One of the things I think that has happened that we noticed by the going from homes, particularly with Agile, is the perception that Agile teams must sit together to facilitate collaboration, building a sense of team and trust. COVID-19 necessitated companies, teams, individuals, and Cincinnati Insurance Company to find creative ways to accomplish what they were doing in person in a remote manner. And so for us, first question we ask ourselves is, what is it about sitting next to the person that encourages collaboration, team building, and trust, and how can we replicate that in a remote environment? Another good thing that helped us in a successful transition is our claims team went to a remote work environment after only one sprint. So they hadn't even developed any really good habits about working together closely. So they didn't have to forget anything. And I don't think, what they were learning then was to see how they could replicate that. Perhaps the challenge helped them be more intentional and creative with their communication and interactions. I mean, ultimately, people just are resilient and seek to find better ways to do things. One of the things we're considering is adding a second Agile team to our claims group. Right now, we're just trying to figure out, do we want to wait till we go back after the first of the year, or are we confident enough that we can go ahead and move forward remotely? I think within the next 30 days or so, we're going to make that decision. For me, it's just been exciting to see what's happened over the last 6 months, I guess it's been now, and also looking forward to the next 3 months while we remain working from home. One thing I do know is I'm very encouraged by our early results.
That's good to hear. I mean, I talked to a lot of different people, and certainly having the hardware and having some remote field operations to begin with makes things a little bit easier. Some companies struggle a little bit more than others, depending on how much they practiced in the past and how prepared they were to deploy people.
It's nice that wasn't one of the things, that we had to worry about, because I did, to your point, I know several friends of mine working, not just in insurance, but other industries, had a lot of problems with that transition because they didn't have the hardware or the infrastructure.
Exactly. So John, what are some of the common mistakes that are made when going to Agile leadership?
Alan, we've never made a mistake, so I'm not really sure I can comment on that.
That's great.
No, seriously. What's really interesting about this is yesterday I was reading an article in CIO by Mary Kay Pratt, and it was entitled 10 Lies CIOs Tell Themselves About Their Agile Practices. It's a timely article, and it's not just timely because of our conversation now. I think it outlines some of the most common mistakes that are made by companies trying to make the transition, and by those that have actually fully transitioned. I particularly liked one comment Mary makes in the article, and a quote she used from Dave West, CEO of Scrum.org. First, the comment: IT organizations are embracing Agile, but all too common self-deceptions and persistent problems have most fallen short. And then Dave's quote: everyone says they're doing Agile, but many aren't, or they're not doing it as much, or they're not doing it as well as they want. To me, the article is a good read, and it brings home the point that Agile is a mindset that needs to be practiced and objectively evaluated. You cannot get hung up on implementing a framework, and that happens all the time. People say they're Agile because they're practicing Scrum or Kanban or something else like that. But I think you really have to work on the mindset and get your teams to buy into it and understand it before they can move on to the next step. So just saying you're Agile doesn't mean you're Agile. Without developing that mindset or the belief in being Agile, a team may simply just go through the motions of the framework. And often what they're doing is just renaming what they did before using Agile names and terms. So for me, if you're going to be successful, leaders need to make sure that everybody understands the why and it's clearly defined. What you are trying to achieve is understood by everyone, and make sure that that mindset is practiced over any framework. You must make the choice to be focused on the customer over process. And to me, that's really important. That's part of the biggest change with Agile, is make sure it's customer over process. If you don't, you're going to have problems successfully implementing Agile. Another issue when trying to move to Agile is to make sure it's not just an IT thing. If it is, it's certainly going to fail, as all groups that impact the outcomes must be on the same page, or at least they got to be reading the same book. It's very difficult and is something we have struggled with, but we do recognize it as a challenge and a risk, and I think that's what you have to do. In the end, I'm a firm believer that common sense is a huge part of whatever you're trying to do. Not everything will fit exactly into a specific mindset or framework. You must be able to recognize what works for one problem may not work for another, and as a result, you must determine the best solution for that problem.
Yeah, that all makes sense. I mean, I think the practice part resonates really well because you're trying to change a culture at the same time. So culture is all about repetition and practice and evaluating and making adjustments and constantly working at it till the point that everyone in the organization has the same set of norms, and then your culture is on its way. Um, Having said that, we know that everyone adapts to change at a different pace. Some jump right in and early adopters. Others take some more work. And what we're going through is a pretty big change. So, talk about how do you flex to serve all those different needs.
First, you have to clearly communicate, set clear expectations, empower individuals and teams, provide them the necessary education and training, and continue to let them know you're there for them. We always start with why. Make sure everyone on the team understands the outcome you're trying to achieve. What does success look for them? Help them understand the role they play in bringing about that change. Explain what activities will continue and what activities will stop. People are less likely to resist change if they understand the why, the how, and they're assured that you're going to be there to support them and that the organization is going to support them. It also helps if they can be an active participant in the change. We've got to help them understand how this change helps the organization, and most importantly, how it helps them improve their skills and their opportunities. Make sure everyone understands that Agile is an evolution and a journey. You're not going to get it right the first time. If somebody's telling you they got it right the first time, then they may not be practicing Agile. And it's really about continual improvement. For us, one of the other things we try to do is build confidence, provide them with a safe environment, and definitely celebrate their successes, even if they're small ones. And most of all, anybody that's been a parent or dealt with aging parents knows you have to be patient. Everybody learns and accepts change and things at different pace.
Yeah, you mentioned training and development being a part of that, and I agree with you. So, what kind of upskilling is necessary in your organization to really bring agile leadership to life?
It's likely that every person in line of business in the organization is going to need some additional training. What I found in previous projects that weren't agile, but it applies to agile, is business and IT need to learn a little bit about each other and make a concerted effort to understand each other so that you're not talking foreign language. You all need to be on the same page. I think organizations make big mistakes when they underestimate the effort of training and the time it makes to take this shift. They're so ready to say that they're agile before they really are, before they have the skill sets. Most associates are definitely going to need the hard skill augmentation to help them understand agile. But I also believe that a lot of additional training and focus should be on soft skills. Training and development needs to be done to help people break out of their silos, needs to help them communicate effectively. One of the things I found is that we make an assumption that everybody can give feedback or constructive feedback, and it's not as easy a process as we think. So we need to help them understand how to give better constructive feedback, and also to learn how to deal with conflict, because we're in a team environment and they're trying to get things done. Everybody has their own opinion, so they've got to learn how to deal with conflict. Additionally, I think helping people feel comfortable and confident making decisions, it's another common challenge that we face, and sometimes we overlook it or at least under prioritize it.
Yeah. So far we've talked about some of the challenges and pitfalls and mistakes that can be made, but I know there's a lot of successes here too. So, what does agile leadership success look like to you, John?
So keep in mind, my claims group and our claims IT group has only been doing this since March of 2020. So we're still, I think, defining what that success looks like. I believe leadership is an important part of the puzzle here, but that's not any different than any other change or initiative in the organization. If leadership isn't behind it, it's going to fail. Regardless of whether you're using Agile or something else, leadership must ensure that the individual and the team and the organization understands what the mission is, why behind every change, and what success looks like. Once everyone understands these principles, they can make informed decisions about day-to-day work. I think it's often assumed that the leaders of Agile, of the group that's practicing Agile, will just get it. But that's not really correct, and it's not even fair. Leaders may actually need a little more support and training than the teams themselves. One of the things I've heard from our managers and supervisor comments like, if I'm not managing the day-to-day work and issues, what will I do? What's my value? We've experienced some of those issues. It's solvable, but it does require more upfront training for our managers than we realized. Many managers think they're already applying these principles, but switching to Agile sometimes reveals the degree to which we're still being more directive than servant leaders. Some thoughts that I think leaders need to consider are, I've got to empower the team so that they can make day-to-day decisions on how to accomplish the work at hand. I think you have to make sure you select the right people. You got to build their skills, clearly communicate expectations to them, and more importantly, hold that team accountable. They have to take ownership of the whole bit. It's not just me, it's them. I think another thing to do is make sure you're creating a safe environment for the team to continue to learn, grow, experiment, be creative, to succeed, and even to fail. The Agile teams are definitely your biggest ambassadors, and I'm not sure we have used them enough to help them share what they've learned with the others in the organization. You can end up and get them out there with all the other groups, making them be the biggest cheerleaders you have and getting people on board with the change. Another thing I think you can do is you can take people from within those teams and prepare them to be the next generation of leaders. Then from a leader's standpoint, I think what you have to do is you got to work across the organization. You got to work beyond your own team to remove impediments, improve processes, and increase operational efficiencies. Managers really need to focus on working with other managers to bring different Agile teams and outside Agile teams together and enable better communication, bridge gaps between the teams. Leadership success is less about your own team and more about the organization's success.
Yeah, no, that all lines up perfectly well with what we're talking about here is, especially where you're still working at this. And along those lines, how would you go about gauging, or how are you measuring Agile leadership improvement?
Okay, keep in mind, the claims department just started our Agile journey. We can see from early results that our capabilities are growing at the individual level, the team level, and the company level. One of the things we're trying to do is we're trying to be purposely focused on delivering value to our customers and associates. We ask each other, what do our customers need? What is the simplest way to fill that need? Are we meeting their expectations with what we produce? And we try to make sure we're listening to their requests. And how do we make sure we're listening? What we do is we validate that by making small deliveries and getting their feedback, and then we start the process over again until we finally make it to the end. One of the other things we're trying to do as well is we're adjusting and pivoting when priorities change. When priorities change, that's a reality. You can't use any excuse like that when you're using Agile or you're working on any other project or anything in business or in life. I've heard too often you keep changing priorities. I don't know about you, but my world is continually changing, and priorities at best are a moving target. I'm going to quote my wife because she says this to me all the time, and it's true. She says to me, "Only the flexible flourish." And I do believe that. The first time she said it, I didn't, but now, after many times, I do believe it. A couple other things before we can move on. I think we're getting better now at understanding how long it takes to deliver products and services, and we're definitely gaining improved insights into understanding and estimating time, effort, and I believe our cost estimates are becoming more accurate. Another thing that you asked about, how do you measure? Well, I'm seeing so much innovation, like everyday innovation happening among our Agile team. Then they're seeking out creative solutions. They're communicating with the customers, and they're coming up with some great ideas. we try to make sure too in this that we're aligning our strategies across the organization so that everybody's working in the most efficient way to deliver their part of the strategy. I mean, ultimately for us, that's serving our agents and our insureds. Yeah, our goal is to deliver the products and services our agents and policyholders need in a timely and cost-effective manner.
So there's a lot there. And so this is the big question. I want you to look into your crystal ball and try to help us understand, what do you see around the corner for claims? There's so much happening that you already mentioned with innovation, technology, lots of disruption, lots of different themes out there from touchless claims to virtual inspections. So I'm interested to what you see around the corner, and then how does Agile leadership play a role?
It's a great question. And I think there's a ton of topics, like you said. First, let me address the Agile leadership. I personally don't like to limit leadership by putting Agile or really any other word in front of it. In order to be a successful leader, you must have a vision, communicate the vision, provide the necessary tools, encouragement, feedback, and a training for that vision to be successful. So for me, leadership definitely plays a role in it. And we can call it Agile, but overall, I believe it's just leadership. So as quickly as that landscape is evolving, companies need to be able to respond to changing customer demands. And I think this is where Agile comes in. Our competitors are not just other insurance carriers. They're startups, new entrants into the insurance market, and they're the Apples, Googles, Amazons, and anyone else that's providing an excellent customer experience to our agents and policyholders. When our customers place an order with Amazon and know that they're going to get it in 2 days and they can track the progress, we have to realize when they reach out to us immediately after they receive that kind of experience, we're going to be compared and judged to that. And the expectation is that we're going to provide the same thing. I believe it'll be imperative for Agile to be implemented so that it doesn't take months or years to deliver products and services or to even respond to our agents and policyholders' needs. Carriers, I think you pointed out some of this stuff already, but I think we're going to start seeing a lot more movement towards self-service or DIY. I think it'll still be a little while down the road for complete self-service where I report the claim and then I receive a settlement. But I think there's going to be pieces of that built all along the way. And there's some in place right now. I think we're going to see increased AI usage to assist claims and underwriting to make more informed and timely decisions. I believe there's going to be more deeper and more seamless integration with partners and vendors to provide services to our policyholders and agents. We'll need to identify which services and products make sense to farm out to our partners, but then we have to say the experience that our policyholders and agents have with those partners have to be seamless, and they have to be the same service standards that are expected of our companies. I think working remotely is going to be here to stay. Agile is going to have a little, I guess, evolution because, like I said earlier in my conversation, we think you have to be sitting next to each other to be able to have that collaboration. Remote inspections are going to be even more commonplace. I think we'll start seeing it more and more on property. It's already plays a big part on the auto side. AR and VR are finally going to move into a more cost-effective position. So I think what you'll see are companies leveraging that more and more for training. I also think AR and VR are probably going to play a much larger part in property inspections, estimations, and rebuilding. Taking back a really old topic that really hasn't blossomed yet, but I do think blockchain transactions relating to payments are going to finally start making their way into the claims landscape. You'll see even more geospatial imagery by both underwriting and claims in order to help them make more informed and more timely decisions. And I guess finally, I think as an industry, we're just going to continue to feel pressures from consumers to provide a very similar customer experience that they receive from other consumer goods markets. This is going to be something that's going to require us to be agile if we hope to survive.
So there is a lot happening in an environment that isn't the easiest to work with. And so the demand for agile leadership is growing, John. And
I agree.
We're on our way. So really good conversation today. I want to thank you for making time to share your thoughts with everyone. This was really terrific. So thanks for being here, John.
Oh, well, thank you. This was a lot of fun. Let's do it again sometime.
You got it. Have a great rest of your day.
Take care.